Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on Tony Robbins, really diving into his insights on patterns.
Oh, yeah.
But
Patterns. Okay.
it's not just about our everyday lives.
Right.
We're talking about how understanding these patterns can actually help us unlock success, not just personally, but even on a larger scale, like historical and societal trends. What do you think about that?
It's pretty amazing how Robbins connects those things. They seem so different, right?
Yeah.
But his framework is super practical, but it really makes you think too.
It really does. And he starts by laying out these three core skills, okay?
Okay.
The first one, he talks about pattern recognition, which he believes is essential for overcoming fear and making better decisions.
Oh, I see where he's going with this.
Yeah.
Because so much of what makes us anxious is the unknown,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
If we can start to see patterns, it's like someone turned on the lights. We start to understand how things work. And that predictability can help us actually anticipate what's coming instead of just reacting all the time.
It's when you finally get the rules of a game,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and suddenly you're not just moving pieces around randomly, you're strategizing and making calculated moves.
Exactly. Robbins even uses this really interesting example to explain this. Political divisions.
Oh, okay.
Right now, we're always hearing about how divided everything is.
Right.
And it feels like it's worse than ever.
Yeah.
But Robbins is reminding us that these cycles of division, they're not new.
Oh, okay.
He even points to these old letters between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams.
Wow.
And if you read them today, they sound incredibly inflammatory,
Wow, really?
by today's standards.
So it's not that, we're experiencing this crazy new level of conflict.
Right.
It's more that these patterns, they've always been there.
Exactly.
And maybe having that historical perspective can help us not get so worked up about it.
Yeah, exactly. Take a step back,
Yeah.
see the bigger picture. And that kind of brings us to Robbins' second skill, using patterns.
Okay.
This is where it gets really practical because it's about taking that awareness and actually leveraging it to achieve specific things.
So it's not enough to just see the pattern.
Right.
You have to understand how it works, how you can work with it.
Yeah, you got to know how to use it to your advantage. Do you think this applies to different fields?
Oh, for sure. Right. Think about investing.
Oh, yeah. Good
Now, those really successful investors like Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett,
Yeah, right.
they made their fortunes by recognizing and capitalizing on economic cycles.
They get it. They know markets go up and down.
Yeah.
And they figured out how to position themselves to benefit from that.
And I bet this applies to creative fields too, right?
Totally. Think about music.
Oh, yeah.
Recognizing those chord progressions and melodic patterns, that's the foundation for writing a hit song.
Exactly. Yeah. Or filmmaking.
Oh, for sure.
Understanding those visual motifs, narrative structures.
Yeah.
That can be the difference between a movie you forget and a masterpiece.
It's all about seeing the underlying architecture, those patterns that make things impactful and memorable.
So it's almost like learning a secret language.
Right.
The code to unlock success. But then Robbins takes it even further with this idea of pattern creation.
Yes. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
It's about going beyond just using existing patterns and actually creating your own. Robbins sees this as the ultimate mastery, the ability to not just play the game, but to design it.
Wow, that sounds ambitious. How do you even start to create your own patterns?
Well, Robbins uses his own life as an example. He
Yeah.
talks about how he studied the patterns of people who came before him, learned from them, and then built on that foundation to make his own path.
So it's not about copying other people.
No, not at all.
It's about taking what you've learned and then adding your own spin to it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that mastery isn't about being a copycat. It's about making something new.
It's going from playing other people's music to composing your own symphony.
That's a great way to put it.
You're taking all those individual notes and creating something unique.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
It's about intention and knowing yourself, creating patterns that are truly you and take you where you want to go.
So pattern creation, it's the ultimate combination of the other two skills.
Yeah.
You're taking your understanding of patterns, your ability to use them,
Right.
and then adding that creative expression that's all you.
Exactly. And what I love about this idea is that it says we're not just stuck in some predetermined plan. We can actually be the architects of our own lives.
That's a really powerful idea. And what's fascinating is that Robbins doesn't just apply this to personal growth. He uses it to understand the cycles of life itself.
Right. He compares those cycles to the seasons.
Oh, okay.
Just like nature has its rhythms, our lives do too. And recognizing those seasons can be like life-changing,
Yeah.
just like it was for early humans when they first figured out the cycle of planting and harvesting.
It's like that aha moment helped them go from just reacting to nature to actually working with it.
Exactly. And Robbins is saying we can do the same thing with our own lives.
Okay.
He breaks down our life stages into these distinct seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Okay, yeah.
Each one has its own challenges and opportunities.
So it's not about trying to, like, stay in a perpetual summer.
Right.
It's about understanding that each season has a purpose
Exactly.
and that embracing those cycles can actually lead to more fulfillment.
I think that's a really important point because so many people think life should just be this like straight line of success.
Yeah.
But Robbins' framework says no, growth is often cyclical with periods of expansion and contraction, just like nature.
It's a really interesting way to look at it. Maybe instead of being afraid of those winter periods in our lives, we can see them as opportunities for, like, introspection and renewal.
Exactly, like how winter gets the ground ready for new growth in spring.
Right.
And I think that's a great place to pause for today. We've talked about recognizing patterns, using them, and even touched on this idea of creating our own. And we started to look at how this concept applies to life itself, those seasons that can help us navigate our journey with more awareness and purpose.
This has been a really great start to our deep dive into Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be continuing this deep dive into Tony Robbins and his work on patterns. Specifically, I'm really fascinated by this analogy he makes to life's seasons.
Yeah.
You know, last time we were talking about how this whole concept helps us see how our lives, have these cycles, right? And, like, we can learn to work with these rhythms instead of against them. Just like those early humans when they figured out the seasons in nature.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth actually breaking down each of these life seasons, like really diving into them, because Robbins has some really insightful observations about the challenges and the opportunities that each phase brings.
Totally. So let's start with, like, springtime.
Okay.
Robbins connects this with, like, the years from 0 to 21.
Mm-hmm.
That period where we're growing so much and learning. We're under our parents' care and guidance. It's a time for exploring, figuring out who you are.
Right. And it's a time when, we're kind of protected from some of the tougher parts of life. We can make mistakes and, not have to deal with the full consequences. We're encouraged to just try things out, experiment, and learn from it all.
Right. It's like we're given this safe space to play around, discover what we're passionate about, find our strengths and even our weaknesses. But then things start to shift when we hit summertime, which Robbins says is like from 22 to 42.
Yeah, summertime, that's when the training wheels come off. It's time to prove yourself. Step into the real world, Put all those lessons from springtime to the test.
Yeah, it's like the hustle phase, right?
Yeah.
You're building your career, building relationships, really starting to make a life of your own. Exciting, but definitely demanding too.
Oh, absolutely. You're pushing yourself, figuring out what you can really do. And Robbins thinks this season is super important for building resilience, for learning how to deal with challenges and bouncing back from setbacks.
Yeah, like building up those mental muscles.
Exactly. The ones you need to weather the storms, right?
Totally. So, okay, let's say you make it through those first 2 seasons. Then we enter autumn, 43 to 63. This is when Robbins says we start to harvest, reaping the rewards of all that hard work we put in.
Yeah, this is where you start to see the fruits of your labor. Your career's going well. Hopefully, your relationships are strong. You understand yourself and the world better.
Right. It's not just about, like, material success either. Right?
No, not at all. Robbins really emphasizes that the season is about going deeper in your connections, contributing to something bigger than yourself, your family, your community, your work, whatever it is for you.
Right. Using all that experience to actually make a difference.
Exactly. And then eventually we enter winter, from 63 to 83.
So what does Robbins say about this season, the winter years?
He sees it as a time for reflection, looking back on your life and kind of making sense of it all. Like assessing what you've done, celebrating your wins, and learning from your mistakes.
Taking stock, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also a time to give back. Share your wisdom with the younger generation, Mentor those who are just starting out.
It's acknowledging that we're all part of this larger cycle, right? Just like we learned from those who came before us, we have to do the same for those coming after us.
Exactly. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about this whole seasonal framework. It shows how connected our lives are, how we all contribute to something bigger.
It's a pretty powerful perspective. And I think it's interesting how Robbins says every cycle in nature and in life has a winter. It's not something to be afraid of. It's just part of the process, a time for introspection and growth.
Absolutely. Like how winter gets the ground ready for spring, our own winters prepare us for new beginnings. You let go of what's not working, embrace the wisdom you've gained, make room for new possibilities.
So it's not about trying to hold on to the past or stay young forever.
No.
It's about being present in each season, knowing that each stage has something special to offer.
Right. Which is an important message, especially nowadays when everyone's obsessed with youth and productivity.
Yeah.
Robbins is reminding us that aging isn't a bad thing. It's a transformation. It's a journey of growth and change.
It's about shifting your perspective from being afraid of getting older to seeing it as a chance for deeper wisdom, more compassion, and stronger connection with yourself and the world.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is how Robbins takes us even further, connecting these personal life cycles to these bigger societal and historical trends.
Yeah, he's saying there are patterns in history that mirror our own personal seasons.
Whoa, wait. So there are patterns that play in history that are like our own personal seasons. This is getting mind-blowing.
It really is. Robbins noticed that throughout history, there seem to be these shifts that happen every 18 to 20 years. He points to things in both Anglo-American and Roman history. It's like societies, just like people, go through these cycles of growth, challenges, rewards, and then like a kind of emotional exhaustion that forces a change.
Okay, so can you give me some concrete examples of how this has played out in the past?
Sure. In Anglo-American history, Robbins talks about the period from 1776 to 1794, a time of revolution and upheaval, followed by a time of, building up the nation. Then around 1812, there's another conflict, the War of 1812, and after that, a period of expansion and growth. These cycles seem to repeat throughout history, intense periods followed by calmer periods.
So it's not just random events, there's like a rhythm to it, a pattern to these historical shifts. So if we understand these patterns, can we actually predict what might happen next?
That's a great question. I mean, we can't see the future, obviously, but understanding these historical cycles gives us a way to understand what's happening now and maybe anticipate some potential trends, like having a map, not a GPS. It helps you understand the terrain and the potential roadblocks or opportunities.
So it's about understanding history, realizing we're not just living in the now, but we're also carrying the legacy of the past, and we're shaping the future.
Exactly. And that's empowering because it means we're not just along for the ride. We can actually influence the course of history with our choices.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. It makes you think about where we are in the cycle now and what part we play in what comes next.
Right. And it brings us back to what Robbins is all about, personal responsibility. If we understand these patterns in our own lives and in history, we can make better decisions, face challenges better, and create a future that reflects our values and our hopes.
This has been such an amazing exploration of this whole concept of life seasons and how it connects to these bigger historical cycles. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on his final skill, pattern creation, but we're going to have to save that for next time. Welcome back, everybody. So we've been on this incredible journey with Tony Robbins, exploring his ideas about patterns, from seeing them in our own lives and in history to understanding how we can use them to get where we want to go. And now we're finally at the peak, pattern creation.
Definitely the most challenging of the three skills, wouldn't you say? It's not just understanding and using patterns, it's actually making new ones.
Totally. And I think this is the one that really hits home for me. It means we're not just stuck in these cycles. We can actually shape our own destinies and make a real impact on the world.
Exactly. That's what Robbins wants us to see. He says pattern creation, that's the ultimate mastery and something we can all aim for.
Okay, but how do we actually go about creating our own patterns? It sounds kind of mystical. Were we bending reality or something?
Well, it's not magic, but you do need some serious self-awareness. Robbins uses this analogy of composing a symphony. You're not playing someone else's music, you're making something totally new, using your own experiences, knowledge, and values.
I see what you mean. It's like taking all those different pieces and arranging them in a way that shows your vision, your own unique style.
Exactly. You're the architect, designing the blueprint for the life you want.
But wait, doesn't that contradict this whole idea of seasons and cycles we've been talking about?
Mm-hmm.
If we're bound by those patterns, how much freedom do we really have?
That's a good point. And I think the key is pattern creation isn't about ignoring those big cycles. It's about knowing they're there, working with them, and then finding ways to express yourself within those boundaries.
So it's like dancing, right?
Yeah.
You got to follow the rhythm, but you can add your own moves, your own flair.
Yes. And Robbins makes it clear this pattern creation thing, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. You're constantly learning, refining your understanding of yourself and the world, and then figuring out how to apply that knowledge to your actions and choices.
So is building on those first two skills, seeing patterns, using them, and then taking it to another level. We're going from students to like masters of our own design.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so amazing about this concept. When you realize you can create your own patterns, you stop focusing on limitations and start seeing possibilities.
It's like discovering the superpower, shaping your reality, directing your life. That's pretty empowering.
It really is. And it's such an important message, especially now when everything feels so crazy and unpredictable. Understanding these cycles and then embracing our ability to create our own patterns, that's how we find a sense of control and purpose, even in the midst of chaos.
It's like finding that calm spot in the middle of a storm, that peace and understanding that lets you face challenges with confidence and strength. And it all starts with awareness, seeing the patterns that are already there in your life, and then asking yourself, what patterns do I want to create? What do I want to leave behind?
Wow, those are some big questions. And I think that's the heart of what Robbins is saying. It's not just about success for yourself. It's about realizing we're all connected. We're all part of this bigger picture. And we can use our understanding of patterns to create a better, more meaningful life for ourselves and for everyone who comes after us.
This has been such an incredible deep dive into the power of patterns, and I hope everyone listening feels inspired to explore this more. Remember, it's not about some perfect straight path to success. It's about embracing the ups and downs, the challenges and the victories, all those things that make up our lives. And within all that, we have the power to create our own patterns, our own unique contributions to this grand design. So thank you for joining us on this journey, and keep looking for those patterns that unlock your true potential.